Around 2500 BC, a city-based civilization emerged along the upper Indus River in the Punjab region. It is believed to have been established by the Dravidians. They built planned cities such as Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, surrounding them with defensive walls and watchtowers, and laying out streets in a grid pattern. The cities featured water supply and drainage systems, public baths, plazas, granaries, and citadels. Buildings were constructed using bricks, and wells were installed in individual homes. Although large-scale structures such as royal palaces, which would have symbolized the absolute power of kings or deities, have not been found, evidence suggests that priests conducted religious ceremonies in the great public baths. The people used bronze tools, painted pottery, pictographs, scales, and seals. They cultivated wheat and barley and raised animals like buffaloes, goats, and elephants. The goods they produced, including gold and silver ornaments and pottery, were traded by sea and reached the Mesopotamian region. However, this once prosperous civilization began to decline around 1800 BC, likely due to changes in the Indus River flow and climate shifts. Over time, the Aryans, who had lived a nomadic life in Central Asia, entered the northern part of India, near the upper Indus River around 1500 BC. They conquered the native Dravidian people and settled in the Punjab region. The Aryans, who today make up the majority of India's population, expanded eastward to the Ganges River Valley around 1000 BC. They established city-states based on their use of iron weapons and farming tools. The area around the Ganges River often experienced floods and contained many wetlands, making farming difficult. However, the Aryans increased agricultural productivity through the use of iron farming tools and irrigation projects. They formed a patriarchal society and considered cattle to be sacred. The Aryans also created a rigid social system known as the caste system to effectively control the native Dravidian people they had conquered. Under this system, society was divided into distinct classes: the Brahmins, who were priests responsible for religious rituals; the Kshatriyas, who included royalty, nobles, and warriors; the Vaishyas, made up of farmers, merchants, and artisans; and the Sudras, the lowest class who performed manual labor. Among these groups, the upper classes were the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, who were Aryans, while the Sudras were mostly indigenous people. The Brahmins established the Vedas as their sacred texts to maintain their privileged status. These texts recorded Aryan life, religious ceremonies, history, and rules. They also created complex rituals that deified natural elements such as the sun, water, and fire. Based on these beliefs, a religion known as Brahmanism was formed. It later became the philosophical foundation of Hinduism. Around the 7th century BC, the Ganges River Valley was marked by frequent conflicts among city-states, leading to social instability. During this time, the spread of iron farming tools led to the development of agriculture, trade, and crafts. During this process, the power of the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas began to grow. They opposed Brahmanism's complex and overly ritualistic ceremonies and criticized the Brahmin-centered social order. As these criticisms spread, a new way of thinking called Upanishadic philosophy emerged. It focused on exploring the nature of the universe and the self, and later influenced the development of Buddhism and Jainism. Upanishadic philosophy taught that Brahman, the essence of the universe, and Atman, the essence of the individual, are one and the same. It emphasized human experience rather than the power of gods, and taught that people could escape the cycle of rebirth through personal spiritual practice. Around the 6th century BC, Buddhism was founded by Siddhartha Gautama, also known as the Buddha. The religion emphasized equality among all people, the impermanence of life, and liberation through ethical practice. Because of these teachings, Buddhism was widely welcomed by the public and spread rapidly. Around the 5th century BC, a religion called Jainism was founded. It rejected the caste system and emphasized liberation through strict discipline and ascetic practices. Jainism gained strong support, especially from the merchant class. Both Jainism and Buddhism accepted the idea of reincarnation, or the cycle of rebirth, found in Brahmanism. However, they opposed its excessive authoritarianism and rigid social hierarchy. These religions sought to overcome the caste system and were strongly supported by the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. In ancient northern India, the region was divided into many small city-states. After Alexander the Great invaded the Indus River Valley, social unrest intensified. Around the 4th century BC, Chandragupta Maurya restored order and became the first leader to unify northern India. He established the Maurya Empire. The Maurya Empire reached its peak during the reign of its third ruler, Emperor Ashoka. He became the first to unify nearly all of India, except for the southern region. Ashoka strengthened the central government by sending inspectors throughout the empire and by improving the road network, which helped expand trade between regions. Meanwhile, Emperor Ashoka, after witnessing the horrors of war during his territorial expansion, repented for his actions and sought to rule the empire according to the teachings of Buddhism. He supported the compilation of Buddhist scriptures and promoted the religion by building pillars and stupas inscribed with Buddhist teachings throughout the empire. Ashoka emphasized unifying the empire through Buddhism and worked to protect and spread the faith. One of the most representative artifacts from this period is the Pillar of Emperor Ashoka. At the top of the pillar is a Dharma wheel, symbolizing the teachings of Buddhism, along with carvings of lions, bulls, and other animals. Ashoka's pillar edicts were inscribed on the lower part of the pillar. The Great Stupa at Sanchi, the oldest surviving Buddhist stupa, was also constructed during the reign of Emperor Ashoka. It is considered the first stupa built to enshrine the Buddha's relics. The word stupa originally referred to a burial mound in ancient India. During this period, Theravada Buddhism, which emphasized individual liberation, developed and spread across parts of Southeast Asia, including Sri Lanka and Thailand. The Kushans, Iranian-speaking nomads who lived in Central Asia, entered India and unified the northern region around the 1st century AD. They established the Kushan Empire in northern India. In the mid-2nd century AD, the Kushan Empire reached its peak under Emperor Kanishka, who expanded its territory through a series of successful military campaigns. The empire controlled a vast region stretching from northern India to Central Asia. Located along key routes of the Silk Road, the Kushan Empire served as an important hub for trade between China, India, and Persia, and prospered through intermediary trade. The Kushan Empire also interacted with the Roman Empire, issued its own coinage, and saw significant developments in medicine and astronomy. Emperor Kanishka promoted learning and religion. He especially supported Buddhism by sponsoring the compilation of Buddhist scriptures, constructing temples and stupas, and actively promoting the protection and spread of the faith. With the support of Emperor Kanishka, the Kushan Empire played a major role in the formation and development of Mahayana Buddhism, which aimed to save all living beings and regarded the Buddha as a transcendent figure. The Kushan Empire also demonstrated religious tolerance toward Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, and Greek deities. Mahayana Buddhism, which developed during the reign of Emperor Kanishka, means the great vehicle that carries many beings to the Pure Land. It focused on the salvation of all living beings rather than individual liberation. This form of Buddhism also deified and venerated the Buddha and Bodhisattvas. Meanwhile, in Gandhara, a region in northwestern India that served as a central area of the Kushan Empire, Hellenistic and Indian cultures blended following the expedition of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC. This cultural fusion led to the emergence of Gandhara art, a Greco-Buddhist art style. Influenced by the Hellenistic tradition of depicting gods in human form, Indian artists began creating statues of the Buddha in human form. Mahayana Buddhism and Gandhara art spread throughout Central Asia to China, Korea, and Japan. In this way, the Kushan Empire, which had fostered the development of Mahayana Buddhism and Gandhara art, ended in the late 3rd century after being attacked by the Sasanian Empire of Persia. After the fall of the Kushan Empire at the hands of the Sasanian Empire of Persia in the late 3rd century, Chandragupta I founded the Gupta Empire in the early 4th century along the Ganges River Valley. The Gupta Empire expanded its territory through conquest and grew into a major empire under Chandragupta II, who came to control much of northern and central India. Under Chandragupta II's rule, the Gupta Empire entered a golden age. The central and regional administrative systems were reorganized, bringing political stability. The expansion of farmland and the promotion of maritime trade led to economic prosperity. The Guptas also actively supported learning and the arts, which contributed to significant achievements in literature, science, art, and religion. These developments laid the foundation for a distinctive Indian culture known as the Gupta style. During the Gupta period, Hinduism was established through the continuation of Brahmanism and the caste system, along with the incorporation of Buddhism and local folk traditions. Hinduism did not have a single founder or a unified set of doctrines, but it embraced a wide range of elements, from primitive beliefs to lofty philosophical ideas. Its teachings were simple. Anyone could offer sacrifices to the gods, and its strong connection to indigenous customs made it readily accepted by people of all social classes. As a result, Hinduism rapidly spread throughout India, while Buddhism gradually declined. In Hinduism, people worshipped a variety of gods depending on the region, including Shiva, the god of destruction, Vishnu, the god of preservation, and Brahma, the god of creation. The rulers of the Gupta Empire associated themselves with Vishnu to legitimize their authority. In some cases, they even identified themselves as earthly incarnations of the god to reinforce their divine status. In Hinduism, rituals based on karma and the caste system were highly emphasized, and as a result, the Brahmins held supreme status and influence. The laws of Manu, which outlined rules related to the caste system, rituals, and customs, had a major impact on the daily lives of Hindus. The Laws of Manu is a sacred Hindu text that outlines everything from the creation of the universe to the moral and social duties of individuals. This text had a profound influence not only on the daily lives of Indians, but also on their spiritual worldview. According to the Laws of Manu, the Creator assigned each caste specific responsibilities. Brahmins were expected to study and teach the Vedas and conduct religious rituals. Kshatriyas were assigned the roles of protecting and ruling the people. Vaishyas took charge of farming and raising livestock, while Sudras were instructed to serve the other 3 castes. In southern India, Hinduism blended with local folk traditions and emphasized pleasing the gods through music and dance. As a result, cultural elements such as devotional songs, poetry, and temple architecture developed more prominently than strict rituals. However, the Gupta Empire, which had helped Hindu culture flourish, gradually declined in the 5th century due to invasions by the Hephthalites, a nomadic group from Central Asia, and internal struggles over succession. The empire eventually collapsed in the mid-6th century, and India entered a long period of political fragmentation. During the Gupta period, resistance against foreign invasions and the process of unifying the region led to a heightened sense of cultural identity. Also, to strengthen royal authority, Hindu culture was actively promoted. As a result, distinctively Indian characteristics emerged in many fields, including religion, literature, art, science, and philosophy. In the field of religion, Hinduism developed into a national religion, while Buddhism began to decline. However, because of the state's tolerance toward other faiths, the study of Buddhist teachings continued. This environment led to the emergence of Vajrayana Buddhism, a tantric branch of Buddhism. However, Vajrayana later declined around the 8th to 9th centuries. In literature, Sanskrit, the language of the Brahmin class and known as the pure or perfected language, became the common language, leading to the development of Sanskrit literature. The great epics Ramayana and Mahabharata, which had been passed down since ancient times, were compiled in Sanskrit, and along with the laws of Manu, came to serve as important scriptures of Hinduism. The Ramayana tells the adventurous story of Rama, a prince of the kingdom of Kosala. The Mahabharata centers on an 18-day war between two branches of the Bharata royal family. It contains a wide range of episodes related to mythology, legend, religion, philosophy, ethics, law, and social systems. The play Shakuntala provides a detailed depiction of courtly culture during the Gupta period. In addition, commentaries on the Upanishadic philosophy, which teaches that Brahman, the ultimate reality of the universe, and Atman, the true self of the individual, are fundamentally the same, were also written in Sanskrit. The Gupta style of art developed during this period, blending indigenous Indian traditions with Greco-Buddhist influences from the Gandhara tradition. This style is best represented by the Buddha statues and murals found in the Ajanta and Ellora cave temples. Over time, the Gupta style spread through Central Asia and had a profound influence on Buddhist art in East Asia, including China, Korea, and Japan. During the Gupta period, significant advancements were made in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. Indian scholars developed the concept of zero and used a decimal system that later influenced the formation of Arabic numerals. They also proposed that the Earth is spherical, explained the phenomenon of lunar eclipses, and suggested that the Earth rotates on its axis. These scientific ideas were later transmitted to the Islamic world, where they contributed to the development of natural sciences. After the fall of the Gupta Empire, India became politically divided, and from the 8th century onwards, Islamic forces started to invade from the northwest. By the late 10th century, the Turkic people of Afghanistan had established the Ghaznavid dynasty. By the late 12th century, the Ghurid dynasty had taken control of Afghanistan and expanded its influence into the Indian subcontinent. In the early 13th century, an Islamic kingdom was established with Delhi as its capital. Over the next 3 centuries, 5 successive dynasties ruled over northern India during what is known as the Delhi Sultanate period. The Delhi Sultanate implemented a policy of religious tolerance by allowing Hindus to practice their faith freely, provided they paid the jizya, a poll tax levied uniformly based on the size of one's family, regardless of gender, caste, or income. This policy caused many Hindus, especially those unhappy with the rigid caste system, to convert to Islam, which promoted social equality. As a result, the Muslim population in the region grew significantly. Meanwhile, in southern India, the Chola dynasty flourished from the 9th to the 13th century. The Cholas maintained a powerful navy and engaged in extensive trade with regions such as Southeast Asia and West Asia. They also played a major part in spreading Hindu culture across Southeast Asia. In the early 16th century, Babur, a Central Asian ruler descended from both Genghis Khan and Timur, invaded northern India from his base in Afghanistan. In 1526, he defeated the Delhi Sultanate and established the Mughal Empire with Delhi as its capital. Babur considered himself a descendant of the Mongols and named his new empire Mughal, a Persianized form of the word Mongol. Akbar the Great, the grandson of Babur, unified nearly all of India except for parts of the south and made Agra the capital of the Mughal Empire. He promoted religious harmony between Muslims and Hindus by opening government and military positions to Hindus and abolishing the jizya, a poll tax on non-Muslims. Akbar also married local Hindu women to form political alliances and integrate Hindu elites. Additionally, he established a centralized administration by dividing the empire into 12 provinces. These policies contributed to a century of prosperity under Mughal rule. In the late 17th century, Emperor Aurangzeb launched a series of military campaigns and conquered most of southern India, expanding the Mughal Empire to its greatest territorial extent. However, the constant warfare strained the empire's finances. In response, Aurangzeb adopted an Islamic supremacist policy, reintroduced the jizya tax, and ordered the destruction of Hindu temples. These actions provoked widespread resistance, including uprisings by the Sikhs in the Punjab region and the Maratha kingdom in central India. The Marathas later formed the Maratha Confederacy, which became a major threat to Mughal rule. The Maratha Confederacy, formed in the early 18th century by the Marathas as a Hindu political and military alliance, rose to power as the Mughal Empire declined. It came to dominate much of central and western India and extended its influence into northern and eastern regions. Following the death of Emperor Aurangzeb, succession struggles and uprisings by local nobles further weakened the empire. During the 18th century, the increasing involvement of European powers like Britain and France sped up the decline of Mughal authority in India. As Islamic powers expanded into India, elements of Arab tradition, Persian culture, and Turkic customs were introduced to the region. This led to a fusion of Islamic and Hindu cultures in areas such as language, religion, and architecture. This cultural blending continued throughout the Mughal Empire. During the Mughal Empire, Persian was used as the official language of administration. However, in everyday life, Urdu was widely spoken, a language that blended Hindi, Persian, and Arabic. Initially confined to Delhi and northern India, Urdu later became one of the official languages of both Pakistan and India. In the field of religion, Sikhism emerged as a syncretic faith that blended elements of Hinduism and Islam. It originated mainly in the Punjab region, located north of Delhi. Sikhism opposed idol worship and the caste system, which drew strong backing from the lower classes. In the field of art, Mughal painting developed as a blend of Persian miniature techniques and traditional Indian styles. Artists created works that depicted portraits, court life, and landscapes. The flourishing of court culture also led to the production of elaborate decorative crafts. In architecture, a unique style developed that combined Islamic arabesque patterns with Indian motifs such as lotus designs and swastikas. This fusion led to the creation of structures like the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal, a representative monument of Indo-Islamic culture, is considered a masterpiece for its harmonious blend of an Islamic-style domed roof and intricate decorations influenced by Hindu and Persian design. It was commissioned by the 5th Mughal emperor, Shah Jahan, in memory of his queen, Mumtaz Mahal, and constructed over 22 years. Designated as a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site in 1983, the Taj Mahal has become a symbol of Indian culture. The Mughal Empire experienced significant economic growth due to the development of irrigation farming and the textile industry. The growth of trade expanded markets and cities, and a monetary system also emerged. The Mughal Empire exported cotton textiles and spices to Europe and gained great wealth through trade with China, Southeast Asia, Persia, and Egypt. Spices like pepper, cinnamon, and nutmeg were especially popular across Europe because of their many uses. These included food seasoning, ritual offerings, medicine, and cosmetics. However, from the 16th century onwards, the Mughal Empire slowly lost control of trade to Islamic merchants. In the 17th century, the British and the French established the East India Companies and gained dominance over Indian Ocean trade, accelerating the empire's economic decline. The increasing influence of these external powers became a major factor in weakening the economic base of the Mughal Empire. By the late 17th century, the Mughal Empire was facing financial collapse and internal division due to resistance from Hindus and Sikhs, as well as the growing independence of regional powers. Meanwhile, in the early 17th century, European powers established East India Companies to monopolize Asian trade and began fierce competition for control over commerce in India. In response to the economic decline caused by the British East India Company, the Bengal region in present-day Bangladesh expelled the British from its territory. In retaliation, the British launched the Battle of Plassey in 1757, defeating the Allied forces of Bengal and France. This victory gave the British control over Bengal's administration and tax collection, as well as exclusive rights to trade in India. By the mid-19th century, the British had steadily expanded their influence and gained control over most of the Indian subcontinent. During this period, Britain exported large quantities of British-made cotton textiles to India and forced Indian farmers to grow cash crops like cotton and opium. As a result, India was used primarily as a supplier of raw materials and a market for British goods. As a result, India's traditional textile industry collapsed, and many artisans lost their livelihoods. Additionally, excessive land taxes imposed by the British led to widespread poverty among Indian peasants. British authorities also deepened religious divisions between Hindus and Muslims, promoted the spread of Christianity by pressuring Indians to convert, and often disregarded Indian traditions and beliefs. These policies had a profoundly negative impact on Indian society. Indian resentment and resistance to British invasion and economic exploitation peaked in 1857 with the outbreak of the Sepoy Rebellion. The Sepoys were Indian soldiers employed by the British East India Company, and many had benefited from stable employment while helping expand British control. However, rumors spread that the cartridges issued to the Sepoys were greased with cow and pig fat. Since most Sepoys were either Hindus, who consider cows sacred, or Muslims, who view pigs as impure, this was seen as a direct religious offense. In response, the Sepoys launched a large-scale revolt against British rule. The Sepoy Rebellion soon expanded into a large-scale nationalist movement involving people from different social classes. The rebels were able to take control of Delhi, the former Mughal Empire's capital, and they gained control over much of northern India. However, internal divisions and a strong British military response ultimately led to the suppression of the revolt. In response to the Sepoy Rebellion, the British dethroned the last Mughal emperor and passed the Government of India Act to establish direct control over the region. The British East India Company was dissolved, and in 1858, the Mughal Empire officially ended. In 1877, Queen Victoria was declared Empress of India, marking the beginning of the British Raj and the full colonization of the Indian subcontinent. Although the Sepoy Rebellion ultimately failed, it was the first large-scale nationalist movement involving people from diverse social backgrounds and played a crucial role in awakening Indian national consciousness. Under direct British rule, efforts were made to deepen social and religious divisions within Indian society, allowing the British to strengthen their control and expand economic exploitation. During this time, the number of Western-educated Indian intellectuals increased, and a capitalist class began to emerge, particularly in the textile industry. These groups played a leading role in nationalist movements aimed at social reform in India and resistance to British rule. Influenced by Western liberal thought, some Hindu leaders launched the Brahmo Samaj movement to promote religious and social reform. The term Brahmo Samaj means Society of Brahma, referring to a community devoted to the worship of the universal spirit, Brahma. Founded in the early 19th century, the Brahmo Samaj included Indian intellectuals, students, and religious leaders. The movement began with the religious goal of returning to the pure and original teachings of Hinduism. As a new wave of nationalists with modern political awareness emerged, the British tried to suppress the growing discontent among Indian intellectuals and used them as collaborators in governance. In this context, efforts to create political organizations for Indians were allowed. As a result, the Indian National Congress was founded in 1885, led primarily by intellectuals, professionals, and members of the Indian upper middle class. Initially, the Congress accepted British rule and focused on expanding Indian rights through gradual and legal reforms. However, when the British government announced the Partition of Bengal in 1905, which was seen as a deliberate attempt to divide Hindus and Muslims, the Indian National Congress took a more active role in anti-British resistance. The Partition of Bengal was a policy introduced by the British in 1905 that aimed to divide nationalist movements by exploiting religious differences within India. It separated the eastern region, which had a Muslim majority, from the western region, where Hindus were more numerous. Although the British claimed administrative convenience as the reason, the true intention was to weaken anti-British resistance. The Indian National Congress saw the partition as a deliberate strategy to divide the nation and strongly opposed it. At the Calcutta session of the Indian National Congress in 1906, 4 key resolutions were adopted to strengthen the anti-British movement: the boycott of British goods, the promotion of domestic products, the demand for Indian self-rule, and the advancement of national education. Through these principles, the Congress launched a more active campaign against British colonial rule. In response, the British supported the formation of the All India Muslim League in 1906 to counter the growing influence of the Indian National Congress. The League was initially regarded as a rival to the Congress, but it shared common ground on some political demands and cooperated to a limited extent. As the resistance movement spread nationwide and developed into a broad nationalist struggle that transcended class and religion, the British government repealed the Partition of Bengal in 1911. It made a nominal acknowledgement of Indian self-governance. India joined World War I with the expectation of gaining greater self-governance from Britain. However, after the war, only about 2% of the Indian population was granted limited voting rights under the Government of India Act of 1919. That same year, the British passed the Rowlatt Act, which allowed authorities to arrest and imprison Indians without a warrant or trial, further tightening colonial control. The British also carried out the Amritsar massacre, using military force against peaceful civilians who had gathered in Amritsar to protest the Rowlatt Act. In response, Gandhi launched the Satyagraha movement, a nonviolent campaign of civil disobedience demanding the repeal of the Rowlatt Act and full self-rule for India. In support of this movement, the Indian National Congress initiated the Non-Cooperation Movement in 1920, promoting the boycott of British goods and the refusal to pay taxes. The campaign quickly spread across India and gained widespread participation. Meanwhile, some nationalists who thought Gandhi's approach was too passive pushed for a more radical method, including armed resistance. At the same time, Jawaharlal Nehru, with Gandhi's support, rose to a leadership role within the Indian National Congress and made full independence for India his main goal. As Indian resistance grew stronger, the British passed the Government of India Act in 1935, which provided limited self-governance to the provinces. However, since military and foreign affairs remained under the control of the British-appointed viceroy, India's anti-colonial movement, which sought full independence, continued until the outbreak of World War II. In 1947, India gained independence from Britain following World War II. However, after independence, religious tensions led to the partition of the region into Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. Soon after the division, Pakistan invaded the princely state of Kashmir, which had joined India, resulting in the region being divided and occupied by both countries. In 1971, East Pakistan sought independence, and after India supported its efforts, Pakistan launched a military attack on India. India successfully repelled the invasion, and East Pakistan later declared independence as Bangladesh. Additionally, in 1972, Ceylon changed its name to the Republic of Sri Lanka and gained full independence from the British Commonwealth. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more. Robin's Historical Records.